Chapter 47. The Last Judgment. The law points to a judge and to judgment. Commandments and laws are not given into the void. They presuppose a place of settlement and accounting so that wrongs can be righted and restitution and reformation made. Laws cannot be separated from courts of law nor from judgment. This is true of history. It is the arena of law, and its court and its time of judgment are the conclusion of history. Our Lord, in Matthew 25:31-46, speaks of the Last Judgment as a time when all accounts are settled and the reality of men's lives are revealed as against the appearances. Over the centuries, the Last Judgment has often had a prominent place in the life of the Church. The Last Judgment concludes all history. It is the witness to the triumph of Christ over all his enemies. Before the end, he reigns through his saints, by whom all things are put under his feet. 1 Corinthians 15:25. Then, with the Last Judgment, the law enforces the totality of God's justice to reward the righteous and to punish the unjust. The Last Judgment has thus been a witness over the centuries to the coming triumph of absolute justice. The judge for the Trinity will be Jesus Christ, Acts 17:31, who will judge the world, quote, in righteousness, end quote, in justice. All shall stand before his judgment seat, Romans 14:9 and 10. God, quote, hath given him authority to execute judgment also, because he is the Son of Man, John 5:27. He is the righteous judge, 2 Timothy 4:8. The Last Judgment is God's final judging of mankind by his law. He is the judge in the final court because it is his law that has been broken. As H.B. Clark wrote, quote, Christian law recognizes the truth of the ancient proverb that, quote, as he, a man, thinks in his heart, so is he, Proverbs 23:7. In other words, that transgressions arise not out of the environments in which one finds himself, but out of the human mind or heart. In respect of this doctrine, Jesus said that, quote, from within, out of the heart of men proceed evil thoughts, adulteries, fornications, murders, thefts, covetousness, wickedness, deceit, lasciviousness, an evil eye, blasphemy, pride, foolishness. All these evil things come from within and defile the man. Mark 7:21-23. Therefore, the law is concerned with respect to the mental and spiritual condition of the individual who, as the blind Pharisee should, quote, cleanse first that which is within, that the outside may be clean also, end quote. The Last Judgment means that all history's wrongs are righted and all injustice wiped out. The conclusion of history demonstrates that only God is God, that man's attempt to be his own God and law is doomed to defeat and to total repudiation before the end. The Last Judgment is also the link between time and eternity. Despite the very great difference between time and eternity, they are still connected. Because sin and death are alike destroyed and because perfect justice prevails, eternity becomes the place of fulfillment. In Revelation 22:1-4, we are given an insight into that new creation. The, quote, river of the water of life, end quote, flows from, quote, the throne of God and of the Lamb, end quote. Then we have a symbol that defies literal understanding. Quote, the tree of life, end quote, is, quote, in the midst of the street, end quote, and yet, quote, on either side of the river, end quote. Christ, quote, the Lamb, end quote, is on the throne, but he is also the river of life and the tree of life. The tree bears, quote, 12, end quote, kinds of fruit, that is the fullness of fruits continually. Quote, and the leaves of the tree were for the healing of the nations, end quote. Potentiality and actuality are one. In the new creation, sin no longer intervenes with its offer of a false potentiality to be as God, Genesis 3:5, so that the fruit of the tree now enables us in our creaturely estate to realize our potentialities in an eternal actuality, as Kay Schilder has pointed out. Because the curse is gone, there is now full and perfect service. Men are now eternally what they have made themselves to be. Revelation 22:11 and 15. In Greco-Roman culture, work was for slaves, not for a free people. St. Paul, however, in 2 Thessalonians 3:10 held that, if any will not work, let him not eat. Instead of being a punishment, work was for the Christians the means of reclaiming this fallen world for God. It's easy enough to find exceptions to this in Christendom, but Christianity faced paganism and pagan attitudes toward work on all sides, and it took time to change them. Quote, Western civilization, end quote, only became possible because a considerable change did occur. Prior to World War II, a constant theme of song and sermon in the church was, work, for the night is coming when man's work is done. The subject was approached from every perspective and strongly stressed. The Last Judgment points to the righting of all accounts and to the perfection of justice. Apart from this doctrine, law loses its importance and pessimism deepens in a culture. The proclamation of the doctrine of the Last Judgment is thus an affirmation of law, justice, and hope. The absence of this faith is devastating to any culture. It is not at all surprising that, as antinomianism has prevailed, the meaning of the Last Judgment has eroded and waned.